Respect My Region. I am your host, Taylor Hart, and today I am here with Danielle Van Lerberg, aka Danny West Coast, in the building. I am excited to talk with you, excited to get to know you a little bit today, and thank you for joining us for real. Our North American weed tour wouldn't be nearly as cool without a bunch of badass women coming on and talking with me. So I appreciate you joining me.
Thank you so much. I'm super happy to be here. Really, really appreciate you guys sitting down and talking with me. I've been in the industry for a while, but a little bit more behind the scenes. So
Yeah.
it's always super cool to talk about my experience. So thank you so much.
For sure. And right before we hopped on, I know you just were saying that you're prepping to take off to Hawaii soon.
Yes,
That
yes.
sounds absolutely beautiful. I've never been myself personally, but I've heard many things from them. And I know that they got medical down there, and I'm pretty sure that they reciprocate medical if you have a medical card in another state. Do you have a medical card, and are you planning on purchasing down there at all?
So unfortunately, I do not have a medical card. I used to. I'm 30 years old. So I was around when it was only medical here in
Yeah.
California. That was when I first entered the cannabis space. I was a bud tender at a medical dispensaries. But ever since went recreational, I have not personally gotten one. I have a friend, she goes by Medicated with Mads on Instagram, who has a really great reel on there about how to actually apply for a medical card here in California if anyone's interested. But I personally do not have one. I anytime I travel, I really like to check out the cannabis culture in other places. Like
Mhm.
I've been to Spain, they have amazing cannabis culture. Um, I hope I don't get in trouble for this. I even smoked weed in Qatar once, which was really
Oh,
so I'm really looking forward to kind of seeing how they do things in Hawaii.
yeah.
But I will, yeah, and I'll probably just have to make other arrangements when I'm
Right.
there.
I kind of did the same thing. I was a medical patient. I got my card like like immediately because I kind of came up. I'm 28, so I in Washington I kind of came up where medical was available for me when I was 18, and then as I turned 21, it all kind of just transitioned into recreational, and so it's been like a solid decade for me. But I let my medical lapse once recreational kind of took over, and I was able to go into those stores. I was just like, I don't really need my medical card, although
Right.
there would be some nice benefits to it, especially because you can't cultivate for personal use in Washington without a medical card. So you're not allowed to grow personally out here. So that is the benefit of having a medical card out here in Washington, though.
That is
But
actually so
regardless,
interesting. That is so interesting to me. Just very quickly, when I was in Oregon,
yeah.
I noticed that for the first time. I mean, here you can have a medical card, but are there really any? There's wellness products that are open to recreational users and medical users. But for example, in Oregon, when I went to a dispensary there was a section where you could not buy things if you did not have a medical card. And
Right.
I have not seen that here. And don't quote me on this. I thought it was supposed to be that way at one point when recreational first came about. I
Yeah.
remember the retailers I worked for saying they were going to have like a line down the floor dividing the dispensary, and now I feel like at least here in California, if you're a medical patient, you really have to research for yourself, or you've kind of just been left out, um, unfortunately. So I think there's a big opportunity there to kind of bring those people back into the conversation who that is why we have legal cannabis. It started
Yeah.
through medical patients advocating for it. So
I feel like it's kind of been the same thing here in Washington as well. Because the last time I read through some of the legislation and whatnot, I do believe that it says that there are specific products that are high THC or high CBD compliant that are specifically intended to be sold only to medical card holding patients. And yet they are mixed in with all the other recreational products and anybody can buy it. So even though in the law it does say that technically some of those products cannot be purchased unless you have a card, it's still getting purchased to this day in the recreational setting. And so I don't really know what the best way to navigate that is because I don't really want to like make people feel excluded from that market, but at the same time, like, there's some hypocrisies going on here that need to be addressed for sure. And I understand that you have some experience dealing with like compliance and like the regulations in the industry and whatnot. And one of the things that I've been discussing with a lot of people is, like ways that we can amend these laws and amend the irrational things that they have in place, as far as like Washington, for example, we can't exceed 10 milligrams in a certain single serving edible dosage and can't exceed 10 doses in a pack. Do you have any thoughts or anything that you would like to see changed for the better? Whether it be like medicinal and incorporating that or not incorporating it or however. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh my gosh. So that is it's so interesting that you bring that up. So I'm currently not in lab testing, but previous to my current position, I was with a cannabis testing lab for 3.5 years. I was more on the sales side of things, but
Mm-hmm.
we got asked so many just regulatory compliance question. Labs were kind of a one-stop shop, and I had to really understand the regulations, the distributor side, the manufacturer side, the CDPH regulations at the time for manufacturing, and the lab side. So there was a lot of moving parts. One thing that has been updated in California that I think is incredible is the start of standardized potency testing for testing labs. So
Yeah.
that's something that is coming into effect in January. Right now, it is when I was in sales, there was always, we really like working with you personally, love money, but we're going to go where they're giving us 37% flour.
Right.
So it is extremely kind of hypocritical to me what's going on, because I hear so many brands like, oh, THC percent, like, doesn't matter, this and that. It's all about terps. Yet we still choose industry partners that amplify results. And yet
Mm-hmm.
we still aren't all putting terpene content even on our labels, because here in California, it's not required unless there's an existing label claim. So it's like, are we practicing what we preach? Are we actually taking those steps to make changes? So I think there are some like regulatory changes that can be made if they want to like require us to put more stuff on a label. And then there's just some personal kind of business steps that operators can take to making information more widely available. So I think it's a regulatory question of what can change, and I think it's a what are you willing to do as a business,
Yeah.
um, to help move this dial somewhere, because it's
Yeah.
kind of a revolving door of, oh, people want higher THC numbers, and yet all the numbers have gotten higher. Like, is it because we're growing more potent flower? Is it because we've adjusted standards and methodologies to produce those higher numbers? I don't know. I would hope it's not the second one.
Right. Yeah. I've been having these discussions because like internally I've been going through like a dietary struggle of dealing with the whole meat problem as of lately. And personally it's just gotten to a point where it's like kind of left a sour taste in my mouth. Like when I go shopping and I look in the meat department, like it doesn't look very good, and that's because a lot of meat now is produced for, they want bigger birds, they want they want more meat to provide that overconsumption. And so I feel like we're starting to see a little bit of that happen in cannabis, where people are just like pumping it full of nutrients and basically like running steroids through these plants just to get it to produce like super potent flower. And eventually you're going to compromise it and you're going to make the plant not as healthy and not as beneficial anymore, because you're drowning out all the other cannabinoids and all the other terpenes. Everything is going just to producing THC, which is inherently so wrong in my opinion, because I love the full spectrum of everything. So yeah, it's been a weird kind of thing to see these THC percentages keep crawling up and up and up and up. And yet a lot of the times the flower doesn't even hit that hard, you know? Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, like there I think it is it is one thing to smoke a really, really high THC flower. There have been times where I bought something at a dispensary. I'm like 37%. Yeah, right. And I smoke and I do get pretty high.
Yeah.
But there is something about that, there's something about flower that just has a fuller spectrum. It's like a more full body, more character high. I like to
Yes.
say it has a little more character.
Yeah, I like to tell people that about like distillates as well, you know, because a lot of edibles up in Washington, you know, they're made with distillate oil, so it's just THC that's going into their system, and so they always ask me, you know, like how can I get a better edible that's more like uplifting or something like that, and I'm like, well, you need to start hollering at people and telling them to use full spectrum oils in their products because you're reducing a lot of your experience to just the THC psychoactivity, and that's not what you're really looking for. And consumers, I feel like, are just starting to kind of understand that and really get to know that. Um, do you hope for, or do you think that soon we'll have more standardized testing across the nation for everything? Do you think it'll be just left to like the states still once it goes descheduled or legalized or whatever they decide to do?
You know, that's such a good question. And although it would be amazing to have like national standards, which I do think would happen with federal regulation,
Yeah,
um, but I mean, like supplements don't necessarily have um, across the board standards that they're
very
using.
good
It's
point.
like, so I don't, that's just so hard because right now per state, everything is so different. Like even when it comes to how big of a batch of cannabis flower you could grow, like here in California, it's like 50 pounds. You get it tested per 50 pounds.
Right,
In Nevada, it's something crazy like 10 pounds, or maybe it's in Oregon where it's something really, really like a really low pound number for your batch. So
right.
I think it would just be a lot of differences to overcome for that to happen. But one thing I really like that you said was the word overconsumption,
Hmm.
because I smoke every day, but I really am an advocate for the non overconsumption of
Yes.
cannabis. Like I'm all about the cannabis culture, and I think that's a huge thing right now if we get into that. Like there's a huge shift in the market, I think, of these businesses that have come in with just like, hey, let's get someone who worked for Target for 20 years to be our CEO, and let's be completely disconnected from what the actual cannabis community wants. I
Yeah.
think we're starting to see that, and those companies are starting to go downhill. And if you're kind of a new culture brand, or if you're a culture brand, it's an okay time. It's not like a great time for anyone right now per se in the medical legal market, or in the legal market in California, but it's a good time to infiltrate because I think we're kind of going back to the culture. But with that being
Hmm.
said, when I see like a video of someone taking like a 6 gram dab, I just can't get behind that. I honestly can't. I'm all about like hitting a giant joint if we're passing it around or something.
Yeah.
But it's just like, yeah, the overconsumption thing is huge to me, and that's because of these THC percentages, I think, and it's just
Yeah.
this whole cycle. Because there are times when I've taken a dab and I'll dab for like a week, but then I'll smoke a bowl of flower and I'll get just as high because of that
Right.
whole just full spectrum of the flower.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that would go into the national, like making any national standards, I think. But
So
I think as businesses, we can all, like, if you're part of a cannabis business or anything, I think we can start taking small steps to at least help shift consumer mindsets.
100%. I'm still bud tending out here in Washington. I've been going on like 4.5 years now bud tending. And I have some customers who have I've been serving since I started bud tending, you know, and I've seen them go through this process of change of how they consume and like what they're consuming and their knowledge. And it's amazing to see just the shift in some of the most like conservative mindsets to now being like very open and just happier all around as well. Like I used to have people who would come in grumpy every single time, really brash when they were asking for things. And then now they're very much so chilled out, and they know things as well, which is really good. And so they've shifted how they consume, and they care about things, and they're bringing up to their friends and other people. And I think that is so important. And the big thing that
So
I try and do is talk about the endocannabinoid system and balancing that instead of flooding it to try and limit the overconsumption of it all. So I think it's a really, really important thing to educate people on. So
that says a lot that you've been a bud tender for 4.5 years. I feel like that is a really under people value it, brands value it as like what can we do to help to get the bud tenders to sell our product more? But it's really being on the front line, and there's so much turnover. I started as a bud tender actually.
yeah,
Um, and I wish I could say I had done it for like 4.5 years, but it was like a couple months here, a couple months here. I was so young at the time. But
yeah,
out of any cannabis job, I learned so much. And actually, that experience has been some of the most valuable, carrying me now into different things that I've done in the industry. Some
yeah,
of the people who I've bud tended with have gone on to amazing positions where I'm actually like kind of jealous, but I'm just like, damn, good for you. And
yeah,
one thing I will say, it's really easy to burn bridges anywhere you go. And bud tending, it sometimes does get like younger people who might not have as much like business acumen yet. But I
yeah,
will say, never burn a bridge, never just like don't show up to work one day and that's how you quit, because you really never know where that person or those people are going to be in a couple years. Like I said, I have friends who bud tended and now they're directors of this, directors of
right,
that for huge companies.
yeah,
Um, and I
yeah,
still I still actually talk to my very first manager who was in the cannabis space. She works for a brand and has given me some products to do posts with on Instagram and this and that. So it's a really undervalued but weirdly valued position. So that says a lot,
yeah,
I would say, about whoever you're working with and about you. But yeah, that was bud tending was the most information that has like carried me through any part of
yeah,
my career, which I work in marketing now for a brand
right.
portfolio. So it literally even helps me every day in that position.
Yeah. Yeah, I was seeing some of the some like videos that you had been making and some of the content that you've been creating and whatnot. And one of them that I actually saw that as a bud tender, we have these discussions every single day, pretty much. But you recently posted a video talking about the terminology of sativa, indica, and hybrid, and that is something that. I struggle with to this day of trying to like talk to my customers about and whatnot, because it is just so easy to go sativa indica hybrid.
Totally.
Um, where do you stand on that? Do you just stick with those, or do you further elaborate on things?
So I'm a huge fan of further elaborating. However, you go to a it's your first time going to a dispensary. Let's be Joe, first timer going to a dispensary. It is overwhelming as heck.
Yeah,
So many products. You don't even know if an edible will be right for you, a vape cart. And then it's like, well, this one has terpenoline in it. And you're like, terpena what?
yeah,
So I think that indica, sativa, and hybrid do make a lot of really complex ideas really easy to grasp. But I almost think it should be like a phase in education. Like, we don't want to overwhelm you too much on your first visit. So indica, sativa, hybrid. Then if I start seeing you a lot and you always are getting a certain type of flower, it might be good to tell you, hey, it seems like you really like flower that has terpenoline in it, that has limonene in it. You really
right.
seem to like those. And maybe that's how it would actually better apply to them. Because for me, like I'm from a sales and marketing background. So on my teams, I'm always the one who's like trying to poke holes in the argument.
Yeah,
So for me, it's like, yeah, I just wouldn't want to be super, super overwhelmed if I'm my first time going somewhere to like a dispensary or something. And I'm it's for me, it's why should they care? Why should they even give two craps about a terpene when they know they get high when they smoke a 30% flower? Like, why should I then care about this other thing that's just a whole other thing I'm going to have to remember? So I think we just have to make that information like, why should this consumer actually care about it? And maybe
Totally.
it's connecting it to actually what they're purchasing and smoking each day. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I just shamelessly like promote Lit House just
Plug.
then.
Well, that's perfect because that's the next direction that I was going to go anyways with this. So, but just to wrap up on this whole spectrum kind of talk on the indica sativa kind of scale, I totally agree with you on that. And I've worked with a lot of customers over the course of weeks and months, and and getting them to really understand these things. And I've really just kind of developed my own little like spectrum flow chart to ask them like what they're looking for, because
Cool.
some may think that they want an indica, but really what they want is something that's like happy go lucky in the head kind of a thing, and like mildly relaxing on the body. And so like somebody might get them an indica that's going to put them in the couch, and they're not going to want that kind of a thing. And so I've just kind of been like, okay, you said you want a sativa. Do you want something like that's going to like stimulate your body and energize you, or are you looking for that easy breezy happy go lucky kind of feeling? And some people that ask me for a sativa, they end up walking out with like an indica hybrid instead and
Right.
coming back and they were jazzed and it was like exactly what they wanted. So I use sativa indica hybrid, but then yeah, it's kind of like a flow chart, as in like what do you want, like is it in the head, is it in the body, is it a balance of both worlds,
I
so
really like
I
that.
yeah.
I might have to steal your idea and like actually make a little slidey flow chart thing. That sounds really cool. That could connect
Yeah.
you to like the right
Yeah.
compounds found in your flower.
Yeah, it's I really think that's the direction. Shout out my dispensary, Dockside Cannabis, amazing company that has just like that wellness medicinal background and focus to it. And so we have these discussions every day on like how can we break things down and help our customers further understand it in a way that's more proper rather than just like lumping them into these three categories, so yeah, I think that's like the next direction to take it. But
Let's
I know
go
you just sparked
outside.
up. Yeah, shout out Dockside, love y'all, been there a long time, so I love it there. But let's talk about your consumption habits, because you just sparked up and I want to know what you're smoking on. What do you usually smoke? I know you said already that you're not into like you don't want to overconsume. So
Right.
let's talk about like what your habits are. What do you like to consume and what are you smoking on right now?
So right now I'm just smoking on a pre-roll. It is a little bit more of a indica. Sorry to use those terminologies right
No, that's
now, but
good.
to lump it up and make it easy to digest for anyone new who might be listening. This one is a dark dosy pre-roll. So I work with FoundryWorks. We have a
Yeah.
couple of different brands that we work with. One of our main brands is Lit House. And one really cool thing that we do, unlike a lot of brand portfolios, is once you become one of our brands, we don't go after like the biggest cash cow ever and we're like, okay, this brand's already making tons of money, let's just absorb them, and because of the name we're going to just be printing money. No, we go for brands that have a ton of potential, that really want to better their place in the market with what they're already doing. So Lit House, they're experts in growing. They are from the cannabis community of Mendocino, been around since 2002, super well
Ooh,
respected in the trade. And one cool thing they did was actually help other growers in Mendocino, just out of like the kindness of their heart, wanting to see that area profit, and wanting to see legacy growers be able to keep up with the times. They helped provide lighting and different things to the houses up there, hence the name Lit House.
yeah.
So I really like what we do because we do put the strain lineage on each of our packaging. So Dark Dosi is Girl Scout cookies and Face Off. Another one of my favorite strains would be the Red Dragon. As you could see, it is Himalayan Kush and Utopia Haze, two like super old school strains.
Yeah.
Um, so my consumption habits are they've changed a little bit because it's the summertime and I dab
Yeah.
during the summertime because it's like so
Okay.
hot. It's kind of nice to just take one dab. And one thing I've realized, I'll leave my timer on because I use a torch. So I'll leave
Mhm.
my timer on. I do about 30, 40 seconds of torch and then I let it sit for like 30, 40 seconds.
Yeah.
And I'll accidentally leave it on and I'll notice like 6 to 8 hours go by before I want another dab. So I
Okay.
usually will do a strain that's like more classically known as a sativa in the mornings,
Mhm.
and I'll take like a small dab at 11, 10, 11 a.m. after I've done my workout and everything.
Yeah.
And then I love to just medicate after work and however I might feel at the time, whatever suits my mood. Is sometimes I really love a bong rip.
Yeah.
Sometimes I want to get straight to the point, do a dab. And then sometimes I might be chilling and actually want to roll something up, a blunt or a joint. I'm trying to stay off of blunts right now just
Yeah.
because tobacco and everything.
Yeah.
But
I
they are
switched to all hemp.
to hemp ones.
Yeah.
Okay, that's another controversial topic to me. If you're rolling a blunt in a hemp wrap, is it a joint or a blunt? I
Now, I host a show called Blunt Talk as well, and I've had this discussion many times, and I will
Mhm.
argue all day, every day that my hemp wrap blunts will burn longer than any other blunt that somebody's rolling. And so the difference to me is like the difference between a cigarette and a cigar. A
Okay.
cigar, I'm going to be smoking on it. I'm going to be enjoying it for a long while. I want the flavor, and I just want to sit there and puff. A cigarette or like a joint to me is like a cigarette. I'm just going to smoke that like 5, 7 minutes and I'm going to be done and I'm
Right.
moving on. And usually that's when I'm just like walking down the street or something like that. I'll grab a pre-roll or something. And I don't have high expectations for it a lot of the times. The hemp wraps that I buy are super slow burning. They are a little bit thicker than joints too, so it just feels like that blunt to me without the tobacco. So for health and wellness purposes, I will stand by that till the day I die.
For sure.
Yeah.
I feel that. I feel that. Yeah, I love blunts, but maybe I should consider just switching to hemp wrap or something. But really I smoke like one small, whether it's a dab, whether it's a bong rip in the earlier day, and then I will medicate for a couple hours throughout the night. But I noticed if I smoke too much early in the day, I just get too tired and burnt out personally. I wish I could keep keep chugging along all day, but it's like once I turned 30, it's nap time by 2 if I've been smoking all day. Ooh, it's a new thing. So
Yes. So have you ventured into using more like CBD then during the day at all to kind of just like take the edge off or deal with any sort of like pain or any kind of other things?
So I am a huge fan of like CBD topicals personally, but I do prefer ones that do have some THC in them as well.
Totally.
So I do use those like after the gym here and there, but not it's not a regular part of my daily routine. I would say CBD products are more of like a weekly part of my wellness routine. Well, I'll do
Totally.
like a CBD THC bath bomb every now and then, or
Love it.
I'll give my boyfriend a massage with the like CBD THC rub and I'll have him give me a massage. So I
Yeah.
would say it's like a couple times a week I do try to incorporate that into my wellness routine and it's for
Mhm.
relaxation purposes more so.
Totally. Yeah. That sounds always so nice to me. I love my bath bombs. Anytime that I get to take a weed infused bath, I just always come out of it feeling more recharged and feeling just so much better. So, again, with the not trying to overconsume, I don't do those all the time, you know. That's my every once in a while, my I need this, and I'm usually in it for a while, you know, and I come out just totally revived. I have topicals for days, tinctures, all of those things. So I like to incorporate that into my routine. It's not an everyday thing for me either, but it's a pretty consistent type of thing that's in my routine. So wonderful. Well, shoot, we're coming up on the end of the half hour here. So I just want to kind of open it up to you real quick to see if you have any other final thoughts, any other things that you want to share, or anything that you got coming up that you want to kind of just plug and let the people know about.
Totally. So, as Taylor mentioned, I am Danny West Coast. If you would like to follow me on social media, you will not be disappointed because I'm going to be pumping out a lot more educational content. I was kind of stuck in my sexy girl avenue for a little minute there, so it kind of
Yeah.
got a little weird for a second. So now I'm back to my roots, which is cannabis advocacy and education primarily.
Yeah.
Different topics, not necessarily super scientific topics, but my educational topics will be a little more political, like cannabis policy
Yeah.
based and cannabis culture opinions based. So if
Yeah.
you're looking for like super science oriented, that won't be me. But I could point you to the right place. Another really big thing that I'm super passionate about is mentorship.
Yeah.
And I would really it's a little side project I'm working on, so I can't announce like any dates or anything yet, but
Mhm.
I'm building a network of women of color and just women in general for mentorship opportunities within the cannabis space. I've gotten just so many questions and requests from other women who are just kind of starting out in the space or who have felt that they're like stagnant and who have kind of been asking for advice. And I just think there is such a big opportunity for that. I mean, we can all go to work and hope that someone at work notices us and wants to take us under their wing, or we can get out there and help others succeed. So I think mentorship is really about the mentee trying to go out and actually find people to work with. It's
Yeah.
kind of it can be so intimidating if you're a younger person, just like, hey, how do you do what you do? Like,
Right.
it kind of takes some balls to ask that. So I just want to make that a lot easier for women of color and just women in general. So if
That's
you are
beautiful.
interested in career advice, mentorship opportunities, hit me up through Danny West Coast. We'll connect on LinkedIn and I'll try to help get you to the right place.
That's amazing. That's something that we strive to do at Respect My Region is build bridges, connect people together, because you never know how you can possibly help somebody out, because a lot of the times they won't it up or they won't do it, but it's so easy just to introduce them to somebody that may inspire them and may get them in that right place. So it's wonderful to have people like yourself that have that goal in mind, that want to make that happen. So I love to hear that, and can't wait to see that fleshed out a little bit more. So
Thank you so
yeah,
much. Thank you. And yeah,
absolutely.
thank you guys for taking the time to speak with me today. Like I said earlier, been so behind the scenes, and
Yeah.
then I kind of got my intention was kind of off for a while. So it's really great to be back, well in with my intentions aligned, and
Yeah.
I really appreciate you guys noticing that and taking the time to speak with me. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us here on the Higher Movement podcast for our North American Weed Tour 2022. It's been wonderful so far. And so we got a few more months left of this. Hopefully, sometime if I'm down in California, we can link up, or maybe somewhere
Yes.
else in the country, who knows, and talk some more and get to know each other more, because I'm all about meeting dope people in this industry, especially women. It makes my heart feel so full to know that there's other women like myself out there who are breaking down these boundaries for younger women to kind of step up into these positions in a little bit more of a balanced industry, I should
Right.
say, because it's been very male dominated for a very long time, even though there's been women right behind them doing the same shit the entire time. So yeah, I am very happy to be able to share your story and be able to show the people who you are. So thank you so much. And I will let you get back to getting ready for your wonderful vacation. So
Thank
enjoy.
you.
Yes, and have a safe flight as well. So
Oh my
enjoy
God.
Hawaii.
My
Yes.
host is like, that's the one thing I'm like, but thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes. Yes. Safe travels. You'll get there and you'll be in paradise.
Yes. Appreciate
All
it. Thank you
right.
so much.
Yes, of course. And thank all y'all for tuning in as well. I appreciate y'all watching. And tune in next week, same time, Thursdays at 3:30 for the Higher Moon podcast with me, Taylor Hart. So I will see y'all later.